We're now live, Chair.
Thank you, Kirsty. Right, good evening, everybody. Very warm welcome. It's a beautiful evening, but we're all stuck indoors, but never mind, could be worse. So yeah, it's nice to see everybody here. Well, welcome to new members of the committee. I know certainly Rushin, welcome to you. Do we have anybody else with us who hasn't been on the committee before? The brain's a bit full of cold, I'm afraid, so I'm not as quite as on the ball as I would have been, but yeah, it's nice to see everybody. Right, okay, so let's make a start. I'm hoping it won't be a long meeting this evening. Do we have any substitutes this evening, Kirsty?
No apologies have been received, Chair.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Right, reminder of interests. Remind members of the need to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or other interests they may have in relation to the items included on the agenda, either now or at the time that becomes apparent. If you would please. Admission of the public, that's fine. There's nothing on the agenda this evening that would require the public be excluded from the meeting. So minutes of the last meeting that was held 24th of January, goodness me, it's a long time ago, 6 months ago. Are there any issues at all with the agenda, with the minutes of the last meeting? Mike, Councillor Barnes.
I'm happy to propose the minutes. It was just I was wondering whether or not a decision had been made as to which meeting we were going to discuss the motions proposals from Councillor Baker.
That is a very good question, to which I'm not entirely sure of the answer. Ian, can you shed any light on that one?
It is a very good question, and my apologies, Chair. I haven't got my papers with me because I wasn't expecting to be doing this on a phone in a car. So my recollection of the discussion that we've already had about the amendments to the way in which we deal with motions was that it was to be brought back to governance and business, but my apologies, I'd missed the fact that it was to be brought back if it was for this meeting. So
it wasn't, Ian, it wasn't necessarily for this meeting. I was just wondering when it was, because I think the plan was to speak to the group leaders or the groups and then come back to this at a future date. It just whether or not if we could put it on the agenda perhaps for the next meeting, Kirsty.
Yeah, I see no problem with making sure it's on the next agenda. So yes, I'll make sure that happens. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you. But I'm happy to propose the minutes as a true record.
Thank you, Mike. Seconder, Megan. Thank you. Ian, with the note on the motions, can we please make sure that group chairs are written to so they're aware that they need to discuss this in their group meetings? Thank you. Otherwise, we'll come to the next meeting and group chairs won't necessarily, it'll have slipped through the net again and we'll be back where we were. Right, thank you. Any other comments on the minutes, anybody? No, all good, jolly good. Right. Okay, so next we've got the minutes of the meetings of Civic Advisory. Megan? You're on mute. It's still on mute, Megan.
I'm right now, aren't I?
That's better, yes.
Yeah. One, I've lost the papers and I can't get into them on the screen at the moment. One of the minutes, and I'm not sure which it is, has made Naeem, which is fine, and Najib to have his name up on the board. So I don't know who's done it. And I've no objection to having his name put on the board, but as far as I could see, it was just the ones that had been mayors and the ones who had died while in office. And it didn't fit either of those criteria, thanks. So I don't know. I put it forward, if we're leaving it, I'm not making a fuss.
Right, okay, let's see if we can spot that.
So I think it's in the Civic Trust minutes.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
Right, okay, thank you.
Item 6. update on plants and grave names of late former members Marilyn and Mohammed Naeem, Marilyn Greenwood.
Right. Okay. Got you. Thank you. I have read it all, but I couldn't remember where it was.
Well, I couldn't.
Yes.
Chair, if I can help, it wouldn't
Yes,
necessarily
please
be on the board. It would be on, as we currently have, there are members' names on the bench at the top of the main stairwell,
Yes.
and it would be a location that would accommodate in a similar way to those members who are recorded as having died in office. We would look to do the same.
Right. Okay. Yes, I think that I have no problems with that proposal at all.
Excuse me,
Councillor
Chair.
Baker. Just one moment, Councillor Lee. I've seen Councillor Baker's hand first, but I'll come straight to you after. Thank you.
I've got the minutes here. It says it was agreed that A, the head of Legal and Democratic Services, Ian, be requested to confirm and provide a report at the next meeting of this board whether the Local Government Act 1972 specified that, and it's got a couple of conditions. So I don't know if Ian has prepared that or not.
Ian.
Chair, is that not in connection with the freedom of, sorry, not the freedom,
That's with the honorary older
honorary,
man.
The two conditions were: one, past members could not be retrospectively nominated as honorary alderman or honorary alderwoman, and two, that former mayors could not be granted the title of honorary alderman or honorary alderwoman, and that Councillor Baker be thanked for the proposal. Thank you, James.
Yes, so that was really for you to confirm then, Ian, whether or not that it was possible to do those things. Can we retrospectively nominate, I think, is the key one, because there are
Chair,
some.
there is nothing to prevent a retrospective nomination, but all the research that I've done does indicate that other councils do not provide for that in the procedures that they've adopted, but there's nothing in law to prevent it. Similarly, the view that's taken across all of the councils where I've looked into this is that the award of honorary alderman of the borough should not be awarded to past mayors, because granting the alderman status or alderwoman status effectively gives the same rights to an individual as would be given as a past mayor. So that was regarded as being a duplication, which was unnecessary. So as far as the second point is concerned, it shouldn't be granted to a past mayor, but there was nothing to prevent it being granted to a past member. From recollection, what Civic Advisory did, and it may be recorded in the Civic Advisory minutes, and again, my apologies for not being able to look at them, there were some criteria that were to be adopted as part of the protocol that's being developed for dealing with the award of alderman, alderwoman status, such as the length of time that would have needed to be served by a member, and the timing within which we would deal with them. And that paper is being worked up and will be brought to this committee at its next meeting in its final form. So it will reflect what was discussed at Civic Advisory.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. Does that answer your query, Councillor Lee?
Yeah, they weren't my queries. I was just trying to help with the minutes.
Thank you.
Chair, but going back to the issue to do with Councillor
Sorry.
Greenwood and Councillor Naeem, that's entirely separate. That's a remembrance plaque in the same way that we have remembrance plaques to other councillors that are not on the bench at the top of the stairs.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Do we have?
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And that'll be done in due course, presumably at the same time as the outstanding list of former mayors is engraved on the boards in the town hall as well, in the Victoria Hall. All right, thank you. Councillor Baker, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, just on that item 6, I just thought, am I right in thinking that Graham Hall, the late Graham Hall, also passed away in office as well?
Yes, his name is already on that.
Oh,
on
is it
that.
already on there? Okay,
Already
great. I
is.
just wanted to make sure we weren't
Yeah.
missing anyone. That's all.
Yes, no, I think
Super.
you are correct. He did pass away in office, but his name is already on the bench. I'm sure. I'm certain it is. So that's great. Okay, right. Are there any further comments on the meetings of the Civic Advisory Group at all? Okay, I mean, I guess my only comment on anything else that Civic Advisory discussed was that all the events planned for the Queen's Jubilee appeared to go off very, very well indeed, and I've heard some very good reports about what happened, so that's great, and thank you very much for all those who played a part in the organisation of those events. Right, okay, item 6 then, Member Development Working Party. Over to you, Amanda.
Well, thank you, Chair. This is the report which is re-establishing the Member Development Working Party, which comes to you every year. As you all know, the member development, it's really important within Calderdale, and it gives an opportunity for those councillors who sit on that to promote member development throughout the whole council and throughout the groups. And it meets on a quarterly basis. You've got the terms of reference, which are currently there, and we come to governance and business on quite at least a yearly basis with regard to reviewing the strategic policy with regard to councillor development, and that is reviewed on an annual basis. I don't think I've got any further comments to make, other than that it meets quarterly and it should be meeting in the next few weeks once it's re-established. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a membership of that as yet, or is that to be established?
That's to be established. It's usually a councillor from each of the main party groups. So it's 3 members.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lee, you put your hand up briefly.
Yes, it was just to propose our nomination as our member to that working party. And that nomination is Councillor Howard Blackborough.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments, members, at all?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy to propose myself to go back on it and carry on that work.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Swift, I think you were on member development before. You're on mute. Go ahead, Councillor Swift.
Oh, what?
I think you were on the member development working party before. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and is it something that you were wishing to carry on?
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. In which case you have your 3 nominations, Amanda. So that's great. Thank you very much. I think it's a really important thing as member development, actually, because you know there's an awful lot goes on behind the scenes, and stuff that we couldn't possibly be aware of in the depth that is necessary, that is ideal, you know, without doing additional training. And I think there's just it's a really valuable thing. And I know it's not physically possible to get to all training at all times, but I really would encourage group leaders and members to attend as much training as you are able to get to, because they are very valuable sessions, and very worthwhile going along to. And sometimes you pick up things that you'd never even really thought about at all, so it really is worthwhile. Okay, that's lovely. Any further questions on, or yes, Councillor Lee?
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to agree with your comments about the importance of this. and to say to Amanda Venning that I know that it's sometimes very difficult to round up councillors, but you do an excellent job in at least trying, Amanda, and I think most of the time successful. And to the subcommittee, and to thank them for the work last year, and hope it will continue this year as successfully as in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, and I echo your comments to Amanda about the hard work she does in trying to persuade us to all to attend as many as we can. But yes, it is a worthwhile thing. So yes, please keep up the good work. You're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you don't feel obliged if you've got better things to do. Thank you very much. Okay. Right, so sorry, I'm trying to persuade my mouse to actually scroll back up to the top of the agenda so I can see it. Right, next item on the agenda is HR policies. So it's over to you, Jackie.
Good evening, councillors, and good evening, officers. Just an oral report, very quick really report, just to tell you what we're working on at the moment with regard to HR policies and what you can expect to see over the forthcoming months, the policies that we're reviewing. There's 7 at the moment that we're just out to consultation on. One's just finally reached the end of it but wasn't ready to come to this meeting, which is the sabbatical leave policy, and these are just a refresh that we do on an annual basis to look at all the HR policies, making sure that obviously they're fit for purpose, there's been no changes in legislation, etc. So sabbatical leave is the first one that we've looked at. We've looked at also the workplace policy, which is really important following the pandemic. This is formally known as the smarter working policy, and this is where we're looking at, you know, the future reset, the hybrid model that we've moved to and what that encompasses. So that's quite a big meaty policy that's coming your way. The third policy that we're looking at is the Information Governance Code of Practice, which is all around obviously information governance, and Tracy Robinson has done a final sort of cast her eye over that one, and it's now about to be consulted with through the normal mechanisms with the trade union, legal, etc. So that's another quite a big change really. Trade union facilities policy is probably the biggest one that's coming your way. A lot of interest in this one. It's under review at the moment. We're about to start consultation on it, and yeah, it will be coming your way in terms of hopefully the next meeting, if we can get it to that one. Attendance management policy, capability policy, and the grievance policy and the dignity at work policy, all 4 of those policies are currently being reviewed, and we're hoping by the 4th of July they should be ready as well. So 7 policies in total that are coming your way, and I just wondered whether it's worth, if members have got any interests or that they want to ask any questions before we start to bring them back as a final document, then they might want to just either raise it this evening or they can contact me direct if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments, members?
I think we need to see the draft before we can comment, really.
Yes, indeed. It would certainly be very worthwhile, at the very least, having a list of the policies that are coming our way, and then we know when they're likely to be published, and then so if that can be sent to Kirsty fairly quickly, then that can come out to us, and then we know it'll prompt us to ask for the site of the drafts, or or if the drafts could be sent to us as and when they're ready. That would be very helpful. And then it sounds like there's going to be quite a lot of reading in prep for the next meeting, so if we can have it incrementally, I think that would assist enormously. But it sounds like you've got some good work going on there. Thank you, Jackie. Roisin, Councillor Kavanagh.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the workplace policy, because obviously we're showing how we're kind of, we're reflecting the new environment in which we found ourselves post-COVID. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. But I also wondered, not for the next meeting, but at some point, would you be able to send a list of all of the, I don't know what you call them, like the support groups that you have for staff? Like you've got an LGBTQ network, and it'd just be really interesting to see that list of networks or groups to see actually if there's also others that we might want to bring in because they're, you know, good practice in other places. So it'd be really useful to see them in one list, if that's okay.
Absolutely, I can do that. Yeah, we've got a plethora now of network groups which have become more important actually in the pandemic, you know, in terms of keeping in touch with staff, etc. We've got the employee reference group that we started because of this. We've got a couple of other welfare groups that we've set up, carers network group, armed forces network group. So yeah, we've developed this as we've gone along really, and they are growing in size and you know, in terms of membership and of course in terms of the agendas that are being covered. So yeah, no problem at all, Councillor Kavanagh. I will make sure that that's sent round as well. And just to go back on Councillor Swift's question about would be helpful to see the drafts, just to reiterate, these are not new policies, these are amendments to the current one. So we've got the current policies online, but what I will do is when we do any amendments, it's really clear about what those amendments are, and they'll come to you, and we'll try and drip feed so it's not a plethora of policies coming in one meeting, just to take your point, Councillor Foster. No problem.
Thank you, Jackie. Roisin, did you want to make another point?
Yeah, sorry, I also wondered, Jackie, if there's going to be any support, and obviously it doesn't matter if we don't know now, around staff that are probably on the lowest salaries and in terms of the cost of living crisis and support that we're providing as an employer to those members of staff.
Yeah, is that okay to answer, Chair?
Yes, please do. Please.
Okay. So yeah, I've been in contact today with the trade unions, and we've been having discussions about what that support might look like. We've also, on Thursday, we had a meeting of the Local Government Association with regard to every year the trade union pitch, you know, do a pitch really in terms of what they're asking for pay award wise, and they did that pitch on Thursday of last week to the Local Government Association, and we've now got to come away and as an authority put responses to what those asks are around the pay award, and also the changing terms and conditions around things that they are possibly seeking this year that they've never sought before. So one of those things are things like HMRC car mileage rates, not adequate in their opinion, and I would agree with that actually. 45p a mile, it's been that since 2010.
Yeah, 2010-11 was the last time it was.
That's right. That's right.
Nice work on this at work, and yeah.
Well, a lot's happened in that 12
Yeah,
years.
it was
in the latest.
Absolutely. I mean, it was seen as quite generous 10, 12 years ago. It certainly isn't anymore. It scarcely even covers the cost of fuel, does it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things, and a couple of other things like the HMRC have a home working rate, and we don't pay a home working allowance. Some councils do, majority don't, and they want to see a change in that. Now, what we'd again like to see is that HMRC home working rate is reflective of the fuel crisis, for example, and it takes into account all that. So, you know, that's kind of where we sit with that as a local authority at this moment in time. And then there'll be other things that they'll ask for, no doubt, but we'll deal with that as we see fit really going forward. And then I'm doing some work around salaries, job evaluation. Some councils are aware, to make sure that we are reflective in West Yorkshire, to make sure we can recruit and retain our staff and are competitive. So that's another piece of paper that will, you know, the policy that will come your way as well. So I'm going to break all this up over the next few months so that you're not infiltrated by a load of documents to read. But majority of the policies are up to date. They're straightforward. It's just a refresh and minor amendments, but they have to come back through G&B committee as the deciding committee. So hopefully there'll be small reads, but like I say, the bigger ones, I'll make sure you've got sufficient time and they've come to you in good time, if that's okay.
That's great. Thank you very much, Jackie. Any further questions, councillors, at all? Lovely. That's great. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for your comments about the support groups as well, Councillor Kavanagh. That's a really helpful point that you made there, because there's, you know, with so many people working from home now, I think it's really valuable to know where you can get additional support. It can be a bit tough at times working from home, so although that's less of a problem, but yeah, it's certainly worth knowing about all the support groups and making sure all the staff know about them too. So that's great. Thank you.
I could just come back on that, Councillor Foster.
Please.
So you know, more than half of our workforce are not, working in a hybrid model, if you like. So what I'm doing with those staff, just to answer a little bit further with Councillor Kavanagh's query, I'm going out to do some work, some roadshows on a Wednesday with the staff that are what I would call non-enabled, face-to-face contact, to see if they're okay, if there's anything more they want, mental health awareness, various things really, not jump into a solution, but consulting with, listening to our staff that are out there about what they might want, because I think some of them have approached councils in the past about how they're going to get through and manage. So we're going to go out to those staff, and I'm also going to do a bit of a roadshow in terms of taking the annual wellbeing conference that I do normally in the town hall, going actually out to Transport, Manor Heath, Ainless, all the depots, to make sure that we've heard the voices of all our staff, not just staff that are enabled. So it's about connecting up and hopefully getting a system or an app that we can connect with staff that are not currently connected through email, if you like. So I'm trying my best to sort of reach everybody so that they've all got a fair voice really to be heard as well.
That's great. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Baker.
Thanks. Yeah, just on that working from home. I mean, obviously, you do get £120 HMRC tax benefit. So I guess part of it is making sure everyone's applied for that from HMRC. I guess if you get a cold winter, you've got your heating on at home, you probably cost you more than that these days. But on the other hand, you do have that saving of not having to either drive to work or get the bus to work or pay for parking or pay for an expensive lunch out. So I think, overall, I feel personally from working from home, I'm actually better off than having to pay to commute. But I don't know, that's my thoughts on it. So I don't really think if you've got the HMRC allowance for working from home, I'm not sure you need an additional allowance on top of that.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a good point, and just making sure that everybody's applying for everything to which they are entitled. So yeah, making sure that box is ticked, and the managers feed that down to people as well.
We've publicised that. We've put it on various mechanisms, various handouts, various sheets that we're doing, but it's just making sure that, and it's got to be reapplied for. So it's just to say it's not a one-off, you have to reapply each April. So it's to remind staff about that as well, that very issue. So we are getting out to staff to make sure that they are aware. But and then we've also done a fact sheet on things that you can claim whilst you are working from home. So the things like cheaper insurance, both car and homes insurances come down if you can demonstrate that you work at home for a period of time. And there's all sorts of cost saving initiatives around fuel, etc., of where to register and where you can buy. There's an app that you can download and you can get cheaper fuel. You can search in your area where the cheaper fuel petrol prices, etc., are. So it's things like that we've put on a fact sheet for staff really to share the ideas.
When diesel's heading rapidly north of £2 a litre, though, cheaper doesn't really seem to make much difference, does it?
It's two
£1.99 or £2. It's psychological, isn't it? But it's sort of marginally less eye-watering, I guess, would be more accurate, wouldn't it? But anyway, thank you very much, Jackie. Any further questions or comments, members? Lovely, thank you very much. Right, where are we next? Next on the agenda, number 8, review of conventions of member officer relations. That's over to you, Ian.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a report that needs to come fully on the next occasion. There has been, again, some work undertaken just to pick up across my colleagues in West Yorkshire the approach and to compare, which I've done, our convention document against those in our West Yorkshire neighbours, just to see that we are in line with the approach that they take. And we broadly are, but I know that there are tweaks that are needed to it just because of the changing working practices that we've experienced over the last 2.5 years, the factoring in also of how to meet with members, should that be appropriate. Is that something that we would look to encourage being done virtually, or are we returning to face-to-face meetings? So there needs to be that element factored in as well. Response times, I know that they are there at the moment. They are there in the convention as to what members can expect by way of the provision of information. But I know that we aren't always as good as we should be about making sure that members either get the response that's asked for within the time that's required, or get a response at all. Amanda, I think, has left from what I can see on my screen, but the working in a political environment, discussions that take place. Sorry, does that make your screens go funny when I scroll across? Sorry.
No, it doesn't. Just saying Amanda is still here.
She's still there. Sorry, I've only got limited view on my phone, but that is something that we major on in the working in a political environment training session with officers. It's made a constant theme throughout that training session about information and about communication with members as early as possible in whatever process it is. So there needs to be a refresher for officers once that convention document is refreshed, so that officers know about it. And then I need to know if there are failures to adhere to that. I expect all members can point, even over recent weeks and months, to breakdowns in that response. And it's frustrating for you. I absolutely understand that.
Send you a link, Ian.
Thank you. So we will try and get that better, not by picking up individual issues and reminding officers. But it's a bane. I understand that, and we need to be better at it. And communication across the council is good, but it can be far better, so that we can all work together. Jackie and I were at a session today where the Local Government Association was pointing out that the relationship between officers and members is critically important, and that only can be at its best when there is an exchange of information in a timely way. So it needs to be improved, and I'll make sure that's brought back to the next meeting, building on the issues I've just mentioned.
Thank you very much, Ian. Yes, I know there are some officers that are consistently excellent. I mean, throughout the whole sort of waste and recycling debacle, Jill Barker was always on the ball with her responses, for example, and there are other officers that are very, very good too. But then there are some where you think, hang on a minute, that's a response to something I asked 6 months ago, which isn't good enough, and I wouldn't dream of naming names, but you know, there are they're mostly excellent, but there are some that could do a lot better, I think. Megan, did you want to say something?
Yes, this report that's being done about officers and members, I brought this to here going back about 7 months now. I wasn't under the impression that it asked for it to go around West Yorkshire, and that it wasn't as we'd asked for it at the time. Now, I'm saying that, and then I'm going to say, and can we change it? Because Tim looked at the agenda while he was sorting computer out for me, and he said if it isn't taken tonight, he as one group leader will do a report saying how it's letting the Labour members down. Not all of them, not all the time. Nobody wants to have a go at anybody. We just want to get, so we know when we send something in, somebody's going to answer. I think that's as good as it gets. But that's all I've got to say on it.
Thank you, Megan. Ian, did you want to come back on that at all?
I think with most things that we do as a council, we always can work better with understanding the best approach that's been taken to deal with issues that are common to local authority. It's not just Calderdale that deals with this type of matter, and if there are better ways of ensuring that it is made better, then I'll always look to incorporate those. So the work with my West Yorkshire colleagues is designed to do that, but recognising that obviously it then needs to be Calderdale specific. So that's the approach that will be taken for that.
So Calderdale councillors will all get a copy of this before it comes back here or wherever it goes.
Well, it'll come back to Governance and Business Committee before it's approved, because that's, I think, an important part of that process, so that you need to be, as members of this committee, happy with any changes to that convention, or to make sure that it is as robust as you would like it to be. But then all councillors and all officers will be signposted to it, particularly all officers.
Yes, thank you. I think it's just really important that, you know, when councillors send in a query, we get an acknowledgement. So reminding people to set up an auto response on their email, so that you know that it's got to where it's supposed to be going, would be a very useful start, actually, because sometimes you think, well, I sent that, I have absolutely no idea if they've got it, I don't know if they've seen it, and then sort of a reminder that if they can't get the full answer within the timescale, to send an acknowledgement saying that, you know, sort of stating that they're sorry that they can't provide the full answer, but will endeavour to do so as soon as possible, just so we know where it's up to and we don't have to keep chasing. Because the more emails we send to chase, the slower that makes the response slower, because people are reading the chasing emails and then trying to figure out what the original problem was. So yeah, I mean, it is difficult. It is difficult to, you know, but some, like I said, some officers are very much more on the ball with answering their emails than others. But yeah, it's different styles of working, I suppose. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I'll lower my hand in a minute. I'm doing too many things here. Just to agree with the comments that you and Megan Swift made, then we've had this raised at our group, and I think there's an inconsistency which makes me wonder if there's very clear guidelines to our employees about what's expected in the relationship with members. Because as you've said, Chair, some of the officers are consistently excellent. There's no doubt about that. And others, it doesn't sort of happen the way that one might expect it to happen. And by that, I mean, the phone's usually not answered when you dial the number. You leave a message. And sometimes people get back to you very quickly. Other times they don't appear to get back at all. So I do think that on both sides of this equation, councillors should be given a statement of what's reasonably expected from them, and what where they form part of this and what they can expect back. But likewise, I think there needs to be more consistency amongst officers in responding, and some ambitions or some key performance indicators to which they would aspire. So I'm in agreement with what you and Megan have said, and I'm sure Ian will be looking at that aspect, because it's definitely inconsistent. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Any further comments, members?
I was just wondering if there's also inconsistency on our side in terms of how we communicate with officers, because I, for example, wouldn't dream of calling an officer unless it was quite far down the line in terms of I'd emailed and sent the information, and when it got to a point where we needed to chat on the phone, but just because there's 52 councillors, if we all called every officer that we needed, they wouldn't be able to do their jobs. So I'm wondering actually if we all take different approaches, and if there's guidelines for us in terms of actually it's better to communicate in this way to make that consistent from our side.
Chair, I did say that in what I said earlier. It's a two-way thing, and I think the expectations on both sides should be clarified.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's where we're, Chair, and that's where we started from, and Ian picked it up and ran with it. So we appreciate that we don't always get it right as well.
Yes, indeed. Councillor Baker, James.
Yeah, I mean, there's a variety of systems that different local authorities use. Some have kind of almost casework management systems for councillors, and councillors are kind of asked to fill that out, and then that has the benefit of kind of recording all the bits of casework, and officers can kind of see what is being raised. You know, some departments do it better than others, don't they? Highways went through a big improvement, I think, with the members' highways inquiries, central emails. Other departments, it varies. I think one of the problems we also face as an authority is just customer first isn't working at the moment. You know, residents complain to me all the time of really long waiting lists. And if you, as a councillor, email customer first, I don't think any of us have a high degree of confidence that those issues then get resolved. So we end up pestering senior officers and wasting a huge amount of their time and energy that ought to be spent on kind of other matters. They get dragged into kind of day-to-day routine operational matters. I get frequent casework by people who have very simple issues that ought to be solved by customer first and just aren't being resolved at all. So I think that's a lot of a problem we face. And if we got customer first working, then we could probably save all of us and officers and other councillors within the authority would have a lot of time saved by that kind of a more efficient customer first.
Thank you. That's a very good point, James. When I know wait times to get through to somebody in customer first can be very long, and to the point where people are giving up trying to ring and getting in touch with the counsellors instead, because it's just enough's enough. They can't get an answer. They need to get on with the day and do whatever they need to do, and they just haven't got all day to sit on the phone waiting to get through. So I think you're quite right. It would be worth having a look at the operation of customer first and just making sure that, have we got enough people there for a start? How is it working? How is it, what is happening with it? And why is it so difficult to get through on the phone at the moment? Right, I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Swift. Ian, did you want to come back on that specific point?
I did, Chair. There was a very thorough, very good report that was taken to last Monday's Strategy and Performance Board by Sarah Richardson, which gave a very good summary of the significant amount of work that is undertaken by Customer First, statistics around the numbers of calls handled, the response times, the telephony systems that are used to try and ensure that priority is given to those who are dealing with a welfare issue. At the same time, there was a recognition by Sarah Richardson about the improvements that are required, suggestions around trying to make as efficient as possible that system to provide for similar approach that's taken to some of the work that's been done in highways, as Councillor Baker alluded to, where there is a reporting process that avoids repetitive requests coming into Customer First and taking up time. So that report was a very thorough one. It'll be on the papers that were submitted to Strategy and Performance, but the submissions that Sarah made to explain to members as well the detail around those around that report was very good and well received by members.
That's great, thank you. That's very good to know. I shall make a note to look at that report later today. Thank you. Councillor Barnes, did you want to come in?
Actually, Ian answered that because we did discuss it at length last Wednesday at strategy, and I think what we have to recognise that sometimes the problem isn't at Customer First. The problem is actually further down the line. So Customer First are trying to get actions from other directorates, and they're having problems with other directorates. I'm not defending Customer First in that sense, but it is very difficult when somebody down the line doesn't respond and doesn't action to it. So, but yeah, I would recommend you look at that paper and then the minutes when they come out. Or if you've got a couple of hours, listen to the very nice YouTube probably on the council website.
Yeah.
It was well chaired, I may point out, by Councillor Caffrey. I will point that out.
I did my best. Very good. Thank you. That's good to know. Councillor Swift.
Yeah, everybody's saying what I was going to say, so I must have been right in the first place. But I believe from what Sarah Richardson said, that we haven't got Customer First working in the council. They're all working from home at the moment. And that must make life a little bit more difficult for them to get to whatever they've got there to get it sorted. So I think it's just another step that's got to go into the loop.
Thank you. Ian.
Yes, Chair, Councillor Swift is right that it isn't currently physically open, but that will be rectified towards the end of the year. So it will be back, because it's recognised that for some people that face-to-face inquiry is missing, and as I said, that will be rectified by the end of the year.
That's good to know. I know with some things, it's just so much easier to just talk to a person in front of you, have that conversation. Like if you're reporting the death of a loved one, for example, you only need to tell them once, but being actually able to hand over the death certificate, they take a copy of it and it's all done, rather than working out how on earth you send that digitally when you haven't got the capacity to do so. For example, as an example, that I can see there are, and the less digitally enabled of us as well, and people, if you've got a hearing impairment, telephones are really difficult. Face to face is much easier. So yeah, I think it will be a welcome return to have that back. Will it be based at Horton Street as it was before?
It will, yes.
That's good to know. Thank you. Any further comments, members? Lovely. Thank you very much, and thank you to the work of strategy and performance on the information about customers first as well. It's really helpful. Right, okay, the last item on today's agenda then, members, is the update on Honorary Alderman, which we have already touched upon. Back to you, Ian.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Not a great deal to add really to what was said earlier in response to the minute question. There's a very good, very thorough discussion about this at the last Civic Advisory Group meeting, where Councillor Baker's proposal was very much welcomed, and this will be in place for the start of the municipal year in 2023. So the policy broad direction was given to that by Civic Advisory about the length of service, for example, that would expected to have been served by a councillor before being eligible for it. The process by which the application would be considered, and the numbers that would be dealt with at any one time. So that will be picked up, brought back to this committee before it goes to council, before it then is implemented in time for the start of the municipal year in 2023, from which it'll be running. There will be a ceremony that will take place. I can't off the top of my head, I'm sorry, recall whether we would be dealing with this once every 12 months or 2 years. I think it was once every 2 years, or maybe even 3 years perhaps. Just so that it is a ceremony that isn't diluted by its frequency taking place on a regular basis. I think that's important. And as I said before, I think Civic Advisory accepted it could be awarded to past members, but not to past mayors, because they would be granting to them the same rights that they would acquire through the fact that they were a past mayor.
Thank you. We shall look forward to seeing the full report on that. That's great. Any questions, members, or comments? Wonderful. Great. Thank you all very much. Are there any other comments or anything else that anybody wants to mention quickly before we close the meeting? Does your dog have a comment, Jackie?
It's tea time. Can you get me some dinner, please?
Bless. Bring your pet to meeting day. Mine's downstairs. Right. Okay. Thank you all very much. Any further comments? Ian?
Chair, if we all shout walkies for Sky, I think Jackie's going to go mad.
Gosh, can you imagine? Absolute chaos. Right, that's lovely. Thank you all very much indeed. I thank you. It's been a good productive meeting, and I shall look forward to